Thom, in your opinion, what causes need the most support right now? Yes.
Oh, what causes need the most support?
Yes.
I gave a lecture to the World Economic Forum on this subject. There were prime ministers, there were finance ministers. I was a keynote address giver. And I started off my lecture because I'd been listening for several days to all of these people talking about and listening to lectures about global warming and the problems that were going to come from that. And so when it was time for me to get up and talk, I was introduced as Maharishi Thom Knoles. And I stood up there with the blanket around my shoulders. Nobody else had that. They were all wearing suits. And I said, once I got everyone's attention, they quietened down, I let about 15 seconds beat go by. And I said, everyone in this room, without exception, is suffering from chronic brain failure. And I said, I'm saying that not as a joke, I'm saying it as a demonstrable reality. You've accumulated so much stress in your brains that about 2% of your computing power is remaining. 98% of your brain is being used to store stress and to cause you to behave irrelevantly most of the time. And here, with this brain, you're attempting to figure out what the problems are, and you're missing a lot of them. And you're trying to figure out what resources you have to solve the only few problems that you've even been able to identify. And you're supposed to be leading the world. We're in deep trouble. That was the opening of my keynote address. And I went on to talk about how, the most urgent cause on earth, and now I'm addressing my questioner as well with this, is to do anything to claw back how much brain power we have. When we're walking around using 2% of our brain, we assess what problems are with that 2%. We assess what resources are with that 2%. The world doesn't have any other problem besides humans behaving like idiots. The world doesn't have any other problem. The world's problem is humans not using their full brain. It's the number one greatest wasted resource on Earth. We've demonstrated that we can in fact produce, and currently there is being produced, treble we should say, the amount of food that could feed the entire Earth. We're just not distributing it. We're throwing most of it away. It's absolutely ridiculous. That's a brain power problem. That's not a food resources problem. It's not that we have to now produce 10 times the amount of food that all the humans could eat. We just have to get smart about distribution, but nobody seems to be able to do it. It's because their brains are failing. Failure of the brain. There's enough water, fresh water on Earth for everybody to have some and for there not to be droughts. You could send pipelines from the east where there's too much water in America to the west where there's not enough water. But you can't even build a railway from LA to San Francisco, even though you've had 15 years to do it and untold billions of dollars to do it, because everybody's a dope, basically. And there's just nobody's waking up there. So how are you ever going to get a water pipeline from, the Great Lakes to drought-stricken West? It'll never happen because at this level it'll never happen. And so I put it to the World Economic Forum that instead of talking about all the problems they thought they had, they needed to look left and right and up and down and in every direction possible to learn whatever the technologies are by which they can start using their brains fully. And if they don't do that, they're being irresponsible. And I wasn't allowed to take questions because I went over time. with my little talk. It's kind of like a TED talk. You have to do it within a certain number of minutes. But fortunately, for all of them, there was a day following my speech where people could come and meet me for half an hour by appointment, and the day got filled. There were 18 appointments, half-hour appointments, and every one of them was filled. I hardly had a lunch break. And all these terribly important people came in and sat down with me. And instead of asking me about what I'd talked about, there was only one woman, and the woman did it too, but to a man, all the rest of them were men, they sat down in the room with me, and they kind of looked around like this. And then they said, "Can I talk to you about my relationship?" And all I could do was think, there's validation of the 2% brain. You don't have to do a scientific study. So we really have to get this problem of lack of use of brain power solved. Now, we Vedic meditators know that we can do it for ourselves, but I'm telling you, Vedic meditation is not for everybody. There are going to be, a high percentage of people who just totally ignore it because it takes 20 minutes twice a day. You have to sit in a chair for 20 minutes. It's not a pill. If there's a pill, everybody buy it. But there's no pill that'll do it. And, and then it takes, not just the dedication and the 20 minutes twice a day, but you need to find out more about it and why it's working and what the best theory is that explains observations. That's the Vedic knowledge that goes with it. But if we can get a critical mass of people meditating, a critical mass, around 1 in 100 or so, we'll be able to steer the collective. I think the collective can be steered by 1% of its members. Usually is. The few usually lead the many. This is a biological truth. Biologists talk about this all the time. The few lead the many. So we just need to continue being even better at being those few who, in our own innocent ways, are leading the many. And you don't have to lead them by being a famous person. If you are one of the few people who walks down the streets of Manhattan actually looking at people's faces and smiling instead of looking down at the dried up chewing gum that's on the sidewalk, if you look as though you're somebody who actually is conscious rather than all those pinched faces that you see, I had to sit down to rest for a few minutes from all the walking. I'm not used to it. And I did a little count of all the people walking past me. I counted the next 100 people, and there were only about 3 out of 100 people who passed me who looked as though they were even remotely happy. And I counted 97 extremely unhappy looking faces walking past me. And it just shows how much work we have to do. Everybody trying to figure out how to get somebody else to give them money mostly. And, that seems to be it. And, because it costs so much to live here. And, how are you gonna do it? Stay in the most exciting place on earth, which is, bound to be one of the unhappiest places on earth, and the one place on earth that has the prestige of being the fastest aging population on earth. New Yorkers age faster than anybody else on earth. And I think everyone walking in the streets can feel that too. So we have to be the exemplars. We have to be the shiny ones, My children love a song that they heard from REM, Happy Shiny People. And they sing it. They run around the house singing, "Shiny, happy people." You know the song, right? From 30 years ago or so. And I think, more of that, more happiness. Don't decry the fact that everyone else isn't. Get your own happiness level up there so that you're radiating life for all to enjoy